Hello everyone, I'm going to stumble over my words and awkwardly pause right at the beginning so it takes the pressure off, and that way I don't have to worry about editing this too much or doing a really good job performing to camera. So, there we go. So, this is my new house, and I thought it would be fun to show people it. I was thinking about doing an office tour, but the problem is that would be in like a lot of. Oh, I have emails up behind me. I don't think you would be able to see it, but whatever. So I was thinking about doing a detailed tour of my study, my workspace, if you will. But the thing is, it's not really how I want it yet. And I figured if I'm going to dedicate a whole video to it, it should be exactly how it should be. So instead, seeing as the house, none of the rooms are like perfect yet, it would be best to just do a brief overview and say, well, this is how it is. I'm not going to show you all the nitty gritty details because most of the details aren't how we want them to be, but I might give you a broad impression of how we want the house to be overall. So starting in the office, we now have my computer turned off. Is there still something suspicious there? No, just a lovely little image. So this laptop is very much on the way out. I could almost, I think, show you the situation under here. If you look, there we go. So that is basically I had to tear apart the plastic for the hinge because it kept getting caught and slowly tearing apart my laptop, which is why that is a thing. This is not as tidy as I would like it to be. I'm just going to be honest. This is something that I use to massage the horrendous tension knots I get. My phone is also falling apart. Yep, that's what life is like. You can kind of already see what I'm saying about not everything's how I want it to be. I mean, I haven't even so there's some paint issues that needs to be fixed. There's some plaster there. Yeah, this is the thing. I guess I'm going to stop drawing attention to every single example of where there's stuff that just needs to be touched up. You're going to notice it as we go. This is my tripod that I use for my camera. This is my camera. You may be wondering why I'm not filming with my camera. It's because my camera is kind of broken. Yep, okay. This area I'm actually quite proud of. Well, not entirely. This needs to be sorted out a bit. But this is my little gaming nook. I need some shelves here. I realized because essentially the aesthetic for this room is kind of green, like that green, I guess olive green, then mustard, like you can see there, obviously kind of gray and white just because that's a standard color, and then of course black, plenty of black, and then dark wood tones. So this is black, dark wood tone. You can see that, for example, here, this is my filing cabinet. There is there's a possibility there's bank stuff in there, so I'm not going to open it. I can't remember what I put where. This is something that is from when I was readjusting the radiator, and I needed to do that. Great. This is something, see, it's kind of redundant because I got this in my old house, so that I could, store my papers and stuff. And then I got a filing cabinet. It was kind of unnecessary. This is a storage place. That's what it's going to be. Stuff has got to be worked out. Here, I kind of like the idea. This might sound really stupid, but I like the idea of a hook extending out from here, and I can, in that space, that relatively small space, hang up my suits, because I don't own that many suits. And then what I was thinking, because this could be kind of like a business area, maybe on the top of here. I don't know exactly where this goes. This might end up going there, but put kind of like a tie rack, probably. I mean, whatever. Basically, I have an idea that this would be like the business area where I have my suits, my ties, my cufflinks, just all the fancy things I wouldn't ordinarily wear. But yeah, whatever. This is my chair that's also falling apart. This is an old dressing gown cord that I've used because if the dressing gown cord isn't there, the chair falls backwards. It just doesn't have anything to keep it. It used to be a reclining chair, but now it's a chair that reclines no matter what. So yeah, it has to be held in place by that. This is, my bookshelf. Again, that's the kind of thing I would go into in more detail in a full-on office tour, which, believe it or not, I'm still not classifying this as a full-on office tour. This is me trying to be very brief. You'll just notice things. And then, okay, so this is the bathroom. The bathroom also needs some cleaning. Whatever. This is, the main issue is something needs to be done to make that slightly more aesthetically appealing. Did recently get some splashback tiles, which is great. Now I can splash as much as I like. And, oh, this needs to... So, that's not ideal. In fact, actually, you know what? I think that might have been put on prematurely. But that's something which, fortunately, we have a very nice electrician who is incredibly patient with many of the issues we have. So, and he lives really locally. So I can probably just get in contact with him and be like, hey, it's playing up again. All right. Bin, really need to empty that. Not good. It will get better, I promise. But yeah, that is my study, basically. You can kind of see the opportunities. I would say it's a pretty small space. I actually enjoy how small it is because it kind of makes it easier to really focus on making it exactly how I want it to be. This is the lighting situation, as you can see. I mean, ignoring the fact the window's a bit mucky. There's also the fact that giant tree really obscures my light, so that's a problem. This is the hallway. The only thing that's interesting here is that my wife put these little cushions here, so you can sit. There she is. Hello. This is also probably the best vantage point from which to show you the garden. Obviously trying not to spy on anyone else in our area. Although you can see off in the distance, very slightly, there's a church tower. Just there, that's the little clock. It's where the church is anyway. But yes, so it's a pretty big space. Lots to do there. None of it thus far having even been beginning to be considered being done. But we'll get there eventually. There's also a load of nonsense here. That will go somewhere at some point. And I kind of want to come up with a more permanent location for that. Okay, so this room is pretty much exactly how we want it. Like, we're very happy with this. This is sort of what we're aiming to get all the rest of the rooms to look like. No, ha ha ha, I'm joking. There's a lot about this room that is ridiculous. One of which is that it's got a, which I don't really want to show you even. Oh, I'll show you it very briefly. So basically this was the nursery of the child of the people who we bought the house from. And therefore, that is like a little family tree thing of a family that we don't know. So obviously that's not great. But apart from anything else, this is where, so yeah, the reason why this is such a disaster is because this is where I was keeping a lot of the furniture that needed to be assembled. So therefore, all of like the packaging that furniture is in is here. And basically I should have just looked up immediately whether or not, you know, polystyrene, styrofoam, whatever it is, can be recycled. Turns out it can't. So that needs to go in the general waste. Whatever, that's the thing that will happen eventually. Thing about this room is there's not really any time pressure. My wife's parents are planning on coming from America and they will have to stay the night here, at which point we will need to turn it into a functional spare room. But that's not happening until next summer. So there is plenty of time. This room is not in any sense a priority, although obviously at some point we want to get it looking slightly better. Oh, something I should mention is like, there are still some light fixtures. I mean, that light fixture looks really nice, but the reason it looks so nice is because it's supposed to be going in another room, but that light fixture in the other room is so bad that we can't even like attach it. So we've attached it there for now, so that, yeah, whatever, there's problems. In fact, the lounge would be a good place to talk about these problems. So essentially, we discovered, and this is not to knock the people who we bought the house from. To be fair, this house is from the 1920s. Who knows when some of this stuff happened? But basically, there was like some not very nice looking wallpaper in this room. So we're like, okay, we'll get rid of that, start fresh. Turned out we did not realize how fresh we'd be starting because we basically found bare exposed brickwork underneath the wallpaper, and then like rough plaster on the side that obviously isn't facing onto where there would be brickwork. But obviously that's not something you can paint. The upshot is it needed to be plastered. So we got the plaster around. He did a good job for a very reasonable price. Although I will say, I don't know if this is just unavoidable. You will notice there's like those little marks, that's where the plaster has extended onto the, ceiling and stuff. So you can see it in more detail here. I don't really want to show the back garden too much. I will show that we have, oh no, I don't even, I was going to film my car. I just don't want to risk the possibility I'll get my license plate in there. Obviously we need to be somewhat reasonable in terms of how we deal with things. So this is I don't actually know what that weird white thing is, whatever. So this is our lounge situation, and we're really happy with this. So basically, I mean, first of all, I now very much do love the walls. I think we painted it a really nice color. And insofar as there's a theme for this room, or a color palette, I guess is what I'm looking for. You can tell it's blue, it's gray, and it's not really going to depart from that. I think the one thing that I liked the idea of, and I think my wife agrees, is some like red cushions, like there and there and there, basically bright red. So there's kind of just I think that would be a really nice accent color. So you've got everything else is very light, very pastel, very muted, and then just pops of bright red around the room. But yeah, I could tell a story about these sofas. So basically, obviously we have this long space, but the thing is, the lounge is longer than it is wide. And we were thinking, well, what we want to be able to do, what's allowed for, is to have lots of people around who can, actually sit down and enjoy watching the TV. So obviously that's where the TV is going to go. Right now the TV is there. That is our dining room place. And essentially, I'm gonna have to show you this. I'm sorry. There's so much, like whenever I look around at one thing, I'm gonna realize other things I should be showing. So we have 4 more of these types of chairs. Oh, that yellow is also a bit of an accent color, which I think works with the blue. And this basically is a table that can fold. So if you look down there, what you can basically do, right now we were like, well, when it's just me and my wife, we obviously don't need it anywhere particular, but basically we don't have a dining room. So when we do want to have people over, which at some point we will, the way we can do it is, again, this TV is there temporarily, but we do want to mount it on the wall. So this will just be empty and will be the place where we have our, stuff from the dining room. We will then move the table to here and have all the chairs around it, and that would be fine. Obviously, it would not be very good to have it there all the time because it would be in the way. But the point is, it kind of makes the space a bit more modular. So this is how it is ordinarily when my wife and I are just going to be relaxing and chilling in here. We do want to get a wood burning fire, by the way. But eventually, when it becomes a place we want to actually use for more people, that's when we're obviously going to want to actually use that for its more modular function of being in the middle of the room, able to quite easily accommodate 6 people around it, which will be lovely. I guess I should address the bike. So essentially, I have a bike, I own a bike, I like to cycle, and this gives me access to, obviously it's quite easy for me to get to the front door, go outside, go cycling. We do have a side passage, which means we could keep the bike around this side. We do not have a garage. That is something to just bear in mind. But yeah, basically, this is going to stay there until I've built / one way or another, we've acquired a shed. Obviously, the bike can't stay outside, it would get rusty. Right now, it's staying here. It's not ideal. Having said that, like I say, the house in general is not quite ideal. Oh, that's all just like polystyrene and packing stuff. Okay, that's that answered. So yeah, and also we do want a rug here, like some kind of nice big rug that's just going to make the place feel a little bit more cozy. Yes, there are some paint splotches, but if you look, okay, you can see them a lot here. You can't really see any paint splotches there. Why? Because we cleaned it. So the point is that we can do it. I'm just realizing there's still some masking tape here. So there we go, that's kind of the, I would love to, I was going to say this may or may not be incredibly satisfying. Sometimes it comes off really neatly. I mean, again, it still is exposing the plaster, which kind of made me realize, like, I put the masking tape up, for obvious reasons to avoid painting over, but I realized, well, we might have to do a lot of gloss work, in which case we're just going to have to, like, paint over that anyway. So whatever. Anyway, yeah, I didn't really mention, so basically, there's another weird thing going on with this where essentially this is wood, and I don't know why. It's kind of just like a weird extension of the, and you can kind of see almost like the line where it changes from plaster to wood. Very weird. Anyway, but this, we do have a chimney. Like I say, this house was built in the 1920s. This will be convertible to a wood burning fire, and obviously that's just much nicer. So that's what we're gonna have. I mean, especially with petrol prices being what they are, am I right? Wait, what do I mean petrol prices? Gas prices, that's what I mean. Like that was an example of me overcorrecting for Americanisms. I'm like, it's not gas, it's petrol. Sometimes in the UK, it is gas when we're talking about natural gas. Well, here's the kitchen. So significant thing that probably stands out right away is this. So if you are confused about this, just imagine you're wanting to get something out of your air fryer, you lean forward, oh, ow, ow, ow. No, I genuinely whacked my head. So this thing kind of, you know, is obviously just glass, but I whacked my head so hard on it. It was actually weird. I got like a zit from whacking my head. Like I had a bruise, but like for some reason the bruise turned into a zit. I don't really get much acne, so I feel like it's almost like the bruise blocked the pores or something. I don't know. Either way, it wasn't ideal. To be fair though, this seems to be, we don't like that clock, that clock's a thing. Although someone complimented it, we like showed a picture of the house and it's like, oh, I love that clock. And we're like, okay, that clock's from the previous owners, we actually want to get rid of it. Whatever, different people have different tastes, that's fine. This has a really powerful exhaust thing. I've only ever turned it on level 1. That's already pretty loud, right? Like you can hear you can hear that. It goes up to level 3. So I don't know, maybe at some point we should cook like some kind of steak or something that like basically warrants having a really powerful kitchen fan, because I don't know, like it seems very powerful. I've never had to use more than the lowest setting because obviously usually we're not cooking up a storm in here. There is a vague, what's the word, aesthetic color palette. There we go, that's it, to this room. Specifically, this and this obviously match. That is kind of just teal. I do have a vague vision for this kitchen, which is essentially, oh, we also need a dishwasher, which right now that's just where we're storing old paint. Yeah, but I mean, already this looks very nice. My wife got these flowers. Like, I don't want to really give you too much of a view of the outside, but yeah, there's flowers which are really nice. Those are like basically dead, dry flowers, which means, you know, they stay like they are, but I think they look really pretty. The aesthetic I really want is kind of like Art Deco. There is actually, you know what, I'll just say this right now. I used the old Chat GPT to come up with an idea, and I actually really like the idea it came up with like a few slight changes, but here's what it looks like. But one thing that really I think needs to be established is kind of just like working out the most ergonomic way to organize this kitchen, which is going to be something we work out as time goes by, and also just like exactly where everything should go. Like right now there's a whole load of stuff, so this is like seasoning. I think it would be really nice to get something that actually makes it slightly easier to organize all of these spices. But yeah, there's stuff like, it's a bit like the fact we have like all the lentils and rice and stuff with all the whatever. At some point I feel like there might be a better way of working stuff out. Also, our plates prevent this from closing, so you know. The kitchen is somewhere which, well, it's like Marge Simpson said, when Virginia Woolf said every woman needs a room of her own, she must have been talking about the kitchen. The kitchen is very important, and therefore it is something we're probably going to get jazzed up to our specific desires, but I also think we kind of just need to inhabit this kitchen for a while so we can really get an understanding of how we want it to be and how we want it to be better for our unique users. I will say, the whole time we were in the process of buying this house, I had forgotten how big this kitchen actually is. In my head, I always remembered it as just being like, essentially almost as if get rid of one of those entire counters in terms of the size. And that's what I was thinking it was, like a way more constrained kitchen. So I was happy to get in here and be like, oh, actually, this is pretty big. We've got quite a bit to work. It is a bit like this space in the middle is kind of awkwardly sized, and it's not really big enough for a dining space, but it is bigger than, you know, the absolute minimum you need. Having said that, I think sometimes it can be quite nice to have just air, even in a house like this, which isn't a huge house, have areas that just feel very open, and you just like, oh, like I actually have space to live, and it's not space we need. Like if this room was a tiny bit smaller, that would be okay. It's the excess is kind of enjoyable. The one thing we don't have in room 4 in the kitchen though is a fridge, which this is not a great, although, you know, it's got a very nice energy rating, so that's good. We also got these, for a period of time we didn't have an oven, and my dad gave us these disposable barbecues thinking maybe we could have a disposable barbecue as a substitute for an oven. Whatever, perfectly, you know, considerate of him, and we appreciate it, but didn't end up doing that. Obviously there's like objectively wasted space here. Something needs to happen with that. Yeah, this area, I kind of feel like in a dream world, like that door is completely unnecessary. We basically leave it open all the time. In fact, you actually can't close it because of this thing, although not to say we want this random piece of shelving which we removed there all the time, but whatever. There's tools in here. This is where the freezer goes, and these are where the chairs are. See, I told you there were 4 extra chairs, which when we're planning on having company over, we can get out. Yeah, this room also used to smell very bad, but it doesn't smell bad anymore, so that's good. Overall, this is another example of a space where I think we could make a lot better use of it in terms of making it perfectly ergonomic, or not really necessarily ergonomic, just like actually like making the most of all of the space we have here. And obviously there's like that massive gap there. Like there's plenty of wasted space here. We just need to work out exactly what we want to use that space for in the way where it's still, you know, not being wasted. Bathroom. Oh, for some reason this radiator is still warm. I don't believe we have the heating on, but maybe the radiator just stays warm for a while. Obviously very nice. What I do when I have my shower is, I mean, like the size of the radiator is very nice. So I basically have a towel up here, and then I just put all of my clothes for the day here while I'm in the shower. Yes, it is a downstairs shower. We don't have an upstairs shower. It's honestly fine. Like it doesn't, like whatever. So the only annoying thing is that thing that holds the shower head tends to move. So we literally have a screwdriver here because it's the only screwdriver that fits the shower head. But yeah, obviously shower caddy, whatever, it's a shower. This is not new, or rather, so this is basically how it was when we got it. I think it's very nice, except the, you know, the extractor fan. Clearly it's got performance anxiety compared to the ventilation in the kitchen, because that's it. I don't know if that sounds that loud, but then you got to think like it's quite far away from the shower. My perspective is that this room is pretty much just like a sauna by the time we're finished with a shower, and that extractor fan needs to be doing a lot more work. One slightly interesting story about this is that obviously upstairs, so I didn't really clarify this, upstairs we have that toilet I already showed you that adjoins my study. The reason for that is because I thought it would be annoying to have to come all the way downstairs every single time we wanted to use the little boys' room. So I was like, hey, so basically we got that installed. That was something we had put in already, like, you know, as soon as we moved in. And I was speaking to, you know, the guy who got it installed was like, oh, you know, he kind of tried to upsell us, but, you know, like not, I don't think for cynical reasons. He was like, well, why don't you get a shower put in there anyway? Obviously, as you saw, there is that space where my filing cabinet is, and you could say that space is kind of unnecessary. I actually don't think storage is particularly unnecessary. I think, you know, it's good to have a fair bit of storage. But yeah, he was like, why don't you get a shower put in there anyway? It would be like a perfect place for it. But one, it would have been more expensive. And two, like I said, I like the idea of storage. And the thing is, he was like, well, you know, you're going to regret not having the shower upstairs when you have to come downstairs every single time you take a shower. But the thing is, saying every single time is a bit weird because it's it's just when, like every morning, like I don't know how often this guy thinks people have showers, but I just have a shower every day at most. Sometimes I treat myself, give myself a little bit of extra time, and I don't have a shower, so I can do something else instead. So yeah, if anything, I have a shower slightly less than once a day, or typically once a day. Anyway, so obviously it's no problem at all coming down here. Like it's just not something that affects us at all. That we have a shower downstairs. I've never been in a house with a shower. Well, actually, I was at university. I had a house with a shower downstairs, but yeah, it's fine. In fact, no, I wasn't going to say we actively like it. Like, no, it's fine. Whatever. And I won't actually go out into the garden because I'm too socially anxious. Or is it even socially anxious? Like, I don't want to like broadcast my voice right in the middle. I'm already kind of awkward about the fact there are people walking up and down the street outside and they might see me just talking to a camera. At some point, I'm going to run out of space on this. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
What do you all hate most about this house?
Honestly, probably the floors.
Fair enough. Yeah, I told them we're trying to get rugs and stuff in most places, but yeah, not everywhere. Only one room left. Ooh, there it is.
Oh, our bedroom?
Yep, let's go. Wait, I should do a little bit like speedy editing. So this is the bedroom. The first thing that should jump out is the color palette. We have a very clear green and pink thing going on. This is, so this room looks much better than it did even yesterday, because that desk and that bed and that mirror is all a new addition. So this is basically where my wife works. She works from home. So that's kind of her space. You know, I'm sure it will like improve even more. She's got like all sorts of ideas about, even though this is our bedroom, it's kind of my wife's space. Although you might think, you know, that maybe therefore with the color palette including pink significantly, that she chose that. Actually, that was my idea because I'm gay. Obviously, we have built-in storage. Again, we're kind of still in a position where we want to work out exactly how all of that is going to function. This should jump out right away. So my parents came around while we were on holiday and they kindly filled in a lot of holes that had been left by, screws and installments from the previous occupants. But yeah, now that's just another job we've got to do, isn't it? I'd rather have had the holes, honestly, because the holes don't stand out as much as the big splotches of white, but whatever. Yeah, as you can see, basically there's pink and there's white and there's green, and that's a pretty consistent thing. There's also, there's the light wood tone, but you could say that's adjacent to pink anyway. Like, I'd say that looks pretty pink. You could say cream if you were less ways inclined. Maybe that should be a pink lampshade, but whatever. Obviously, a very kind of antiquated thing. And I would even say like this is kind of antiquated. Definitely a thing with this house, in my mind, is that there is an intention to have different rooms have distinct feelings. And I would say, for example, this room, we want to be a lot more like cottagey, cottage core, I guess is the expression, antiquated. And that's something that, for the most part, I think we're doing a good job at achieving. My study, the point there is kind of like industrial. So with the metal and the dark wood and all that kind of stuff. Downstairs, my thought was kind of like Georgian decadence with the kind of the light blue and the bright pink, the bright red, very much like, obviously in the UK we have all sorts of stately homes, and I think a lot of them have kind of light blue colors, white, stuff like that, kind of bright but light. And then obviously, as I already said, for the kitchen, Art Deco, those are all I think quite distinct styles, so there is a intention around it. I also said, my wife and I recently stayed in like a lake house, and I said I kind of like the idea of almost like a cabin vibe for the spare room, but whatever, we'll see about that. Yeah, and this is actually a good example of kind of my philosophy, which is originally, so the original format for this room was this bed was there. Well, it wasn't that bed, it was a different bed, but the double bed, when we first looked at this room, was there, and there was a TV there, and I suggested fervently that we should have the bed there. I thought that just worked a lot better. I also like the fact that it means that because there's no radiator on that side of the room. There's one radiator, it's there. Americans don't really have radiators. I think they're slightly more energy efficient, which is why Americans, reject them on principle. But what it means is that you get the heat localized to a certain point. So that means that my wife will be working pretty close to the radiator. But obviously when we're sleeping, we'll be far away from the radiator, which won't even be turned on anyway when we're sleeping. But obviously that's fine because we'll be under all sorts of covers. So, it's just an example of a bit of logic. But the other thing I like is I personally like having a lot of the stuff crowded on one side. I like having crowded in one area and then empty in another. That's something almost any time I've ever like feng shuied a room, that's usually what I've ended up doing. Making it so you look at one side of the room, you're like, oh my goodness, it's totally empty. And then you look at the other side of the room, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's totally crowded with stuff. Like that's my shtick. And we'll get bedside tables at some point too, and that'll make it even more crowded. But yeah, I like the idea of the space being open, being empty, but having just a little bit of a rug to give it some character. Also, my wife likes to do, Pilates, body weight exercises, stuff like that. And that's a nice little space for her to do that. Oh, one thing I should mention is this house is a terrace house, meaning that we do have walls that we share with our neighbors either side. I have no idea how much we can hear them. I will say, last night I was going to bed and I heard some people, and it sounded like they were either having a very bad argument or very good sex, because they were just like screaming and yelling, and it sounded like the guy was moaning and the woman was saying like F you repeatedly. And I couldn't tell if it was like an argument where the woman was saying like F you because she's like angry, and the guy's like moaning. He's like, oh, I can't be bothered having this. Oh, you got, like mad because, she's yelling at him or whatever. Or if it was a woman saying like F you as like an expression of just like, I can't contain, and perhaps I was even mishearing. It wasn't F you, it was F yeah. And then obviously why the guy was moaning, that makes complete sense. Anyway, I'm just telling a story about something I overheard last night.
Oh.
Yeah. Hannah was already asleep. Anyway, but I would say generally speaking, we don't have any issues with the fact it's a terrace house. We don't hear things. And I actually think that might have been a conversation I was hearing outside. Right, so I just set up access to the attic, and that is for one interesting bonus thing. See, so far I've kind of been communicating that a lot of what's done in this house feels kind of unfinished in a frustrating way that partially leaves me thinking like, have we got a bad deal here? Have we kind of been screwed over? But there is one exception to that, where it's gone the opposite way. And that is that the people in this house before us seem to have got, or maybe not even before us, maybe even like before the people before us, who's to say, but they got halfway through a loft conversion, which means that on both sides of this attic loft space, as you can see, they've had plumbing put in for the radiator. Well, I haven't actually confirmed whether these radiators turn on, but you think so. They've obviously had plasterboard put up. There's clearly stuff that, they've had a light put in. They've also got this window. I don't know if that was always there. Yeah, plasterboard, obviously there's stuff that needs to be done. Get some, what's the word? What is the word? Insulation in, that's it. There's still more to be done. But essentially, I think that there is a distinct possibility of having two reasonably sized bedrooms up here. Obviously, in terms of like head height, I would say, or like in terms of usable area, I would say, that under there and under there has to become storage, but that still gives you an amount of room. Obviously, you've got, so for me, I'm a tall guy. I lose my head, like I'm bumping my head here. So, and sorry, pardon me being silhouetted, but yeah. So I'm bumping my head there, and then let's see. I'm not gonna be able to take that many paces, but 1, 2, I'm bumping my head again. Having said that, it's not the end of the world if you have to crouch a bit to get in your bed, whatever. And also the space is quite long in terms of, that. So, yeah, I think there's a possibility to get 2 bedrooms up here, which is good, because right now you might notice we only have 2 bedrooms, because what was sold as a bedroom was in fact quite small, and we are, obviously having it now as a study. So if we plan on having kids, and we do plan on having kids, and we have a rough plan of having 3 children, we want them all to be able to have their separate bedrooms, which means we need my wife's bedroom, child number 1's bedroom, child number 2's bedroom, child number 3's bedroom. So yeah, we need to get 4 bedrooms out of this house or move house. But this is an opportunity. Having said that, there is a difficulty. I'm not massively confident in this ladder, which is partially why I put that step ladder there, so that as I get down to the bottom, I can, secure myself. In fact, I think I'm going to stop recording just because, I don't know. This ladder has kind of, as I've been walking down it, it's kind of jolted a bit before, almost as if something is about to give way. So all of this leads us to the last substantial plan I have for this house. And this is the one thing that's worth noting as this is a big structural change, because the thing you might be realizing is, hold on a minute, you just shown us all the upstairs. There's not really much opportunity to create a entryway to the attic that wouldn't take away too much necessary space from downstairs. Obviously, as it is right now, the entry to the attic is this ladder, which, like I say, I don't particularly trust. And also it would mean every single time that a child wanted to get into the attic, they would have to pull down this thing, which, in order for me to not have to stretch myself too much, I have to use a step ladder to get it down. And then they'd have to obviously not a good idea. What we would need is stairs going up to the attic, but then those stairs would have to be a permanent fixture. If the stairs went here, that wouldn't really work because they'd be going out off the side of the house. If they curve around, okay, but then that blocks my access to that room. What is the solution? Well, I came up with one, and I'm quite happy with this, so I'm going to explain it to you now. So essentially, the solution is knock down this wall. This wall gone. And what that means is that this area all becomes one room. Sorry, I shouldn't have shown you out the window. What that means is this area all becomes one room going right through to here. And that means that we can access this whole area through this door. Lovely. And that's where that wall would then be gone. And this means that this area can then become another set of stairs. So this is the stairs, which then goes up and then curves round so that it ends up coming up on top of these stairs. Because obviously all of that is just wasted space there. So the stairs curve round, we be up the stairs. And of course that also centralizes the location of the stairs a bit more, or the location of the landing, allowing for the 2 rooms to be roughly the same size, because over there, that room would be a lot smaller than that room. So that's a big benefit. And then essentially, the study would then just be moved to this area here. Right now our boiler's there. And that would be accessible from our bedroom. So basically, it keeps... Oh, hello. Just kept stepping into everything. Basically, it keeps everything in terms of the total floor area. We still have the study, we still have the bathroom, but the study, which only needs to be accessible from mine and my wife's room, because I'm going to be the only one who's using it, will be only accessible from there, whereas what will then be a child's bedroom off to the left as you're coming up the stairs, that will be accessible, which obviously it needs to be. But then you can also, off to the left, go up the stairs, go round and get access to the 2 bedrooms either side. That is my idea. I think it would be stupid not to capitalize on the fact that, like I say, somebody before seems to have already done a little bit of work on converting that upstairs attic into 2 rooms. So I think that's what we're going to do. And that would be good. Right now, obviously, it's a very nice little house, but while it might have felt potentially reasonably big, it's worth noting it is big, but it's only got 2 rooms. The rooms are all pretty big, but then most houses with just 2 bedrooms, that's not a forever home, let's say. Whereas if we were to get it up to 4, it could be a 4 ever room. We could put the 4 in 4 ever home. There we go. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed and found this interesting. I'll see you all next week. Bye.